Welcome to the All Things Real Estate Podcast with our very own Josh Barker. With more than 20 years of experience and over 5,000 properties sold, Josh brings a unique perspective to the real estate market. Let's get started.
Are we ready?
We're rolling. We're rocking and rolling. It is December. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Josh, I hope you have awesome plans for the holidays.
We have great plans for holidays. Hope
Right
you do
on.
too.
We got great weather for the holidays.
We sure do.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you and I were talking before the camera started rolling about the same thing we always talk about, Bugattis and driving Bugattis. No, we were talking about real estate. We were talking about the shift in inventory because we've been watching it move from a buyer's market, a seller's market into a neutral market.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, with interest rates and everything, we know where this is kind of going. We're kind of getting an idea where the winds are pushing us.
Mm-hmm.
But the exact numbers it's still a neutral market.
Yeah. I mean, right now, our standing inventory is at 3.6 months supply. And that's kind of factoring. Right now, as of today, we're about 620 homes for sale. But in the last 30 days, we've had about 169 that have actually closed. This is all residential homes. So we're about a 3.6 month supply right now.
Which is kind of unusual because you were telling me the inventory is down for December 2022 versus December 2021.
New listings to market.
New listings to market.
Yeah.
Okay, so inventory isn't they're not coming to market as fast. Okay, that's a little bit different. But what's down even more is the number of buyers coming to market.
Yep.
And obviously that's affected by...
Yeah, by interest rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the good news is interest
good
rates are actually down a little bit from the peak.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot in there. So the first thing I think on that is that the interest rates now have dropped. We're about 6.13% as the national rate, I think, as of this morning. And that's, if you took all the lenders in the country, and what's the average rate that they're pricing out a loan at? It's 6.13 is what it is. And that this filming for everybody, it's December 15th. Yeah.
The Ides of December.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what it is. Now, for those of you that don't know, listeners, that the Federal Reserve raised the discount rate by 0.5% yesterday. So people are thinking, well, how come the mortgage rates didn't go up? Because the mortgage rates are not directly tied to the discount rate. And they already kind of anticipated that the Federal Reserve was going to raise that discount rate by 0.5 point, which it did. If anything, that was a positive thing for the market because had the Fed gone in there and raised it 0.75%, that would have been unexpected. And, Wall Street doesn't like things that are unexpected. It typically, changes things. And although for some reason the stock market today, I think, dropped quite a bit too. So out of that, consumer confidence is down and, there's some other economic things that are driving that. But so right now, here's the good news. And there's something to remember. For every 1% that the interest rate goes up or down, it either increases or decreases the buyer's purchasing power by 10%. So you remember what were rates a few months ago, remember?
I think they got real close to 8. I think at the height, we were flirting with 8%.
I think you're right. I think it was 8%, close to it. And obviously that had a major diminishing impact on buyer demand because all of a sudden a lot of people didn't qualify. They certainly didn't qualify for the kind of home that they were anticipating purchasing. And it showed up in our sales reports because last month we closed 162 properties on the MLS month.
Which is pretty low.
It was down almost half compared to last year.
Wow.
That's how much it hit. And that was all related really to those interest rates being so darn high a couple months ago. So now, good news for people listening and watching now is that rates are, in the low 6s. Well, that's increasing purchasing power. We still have some challenges though, because home prices right now, compared to what the average buyer qualifies for at these higher rates, it's still putting some headwinds against the consumer right now in the market.
There's still that delta of I think last month we were talking about, it was something, I can't remember the exact formula you used, but you kind of mapped it out where it was like 30 to 40,000 was the delta between interest rates and the average cost of a home.
Yep.
And I can't remember exactly, you had a great formula for that, but if interest rates come down over 1%, that's going to cut into that delta.
Oh yeah. Well, if the rates went down, another 1% from now, so if it put it down at, low 5s or 5, that would that would almost all but evaporate any other pressure for home values to come down any further.
And I was reading something the other day. I get too many emails, but one of the emails was talking about the numbers were looking good for combating inflation. So the things that had the mechanisms that had taken place. Again, I don't know if these were like Enron accountants sending me emails. It was like, it's not a recession. No, you're totally fine. You're broke. But in a good way.
In a good way.
In a good way. On the good side. But it was one of those things where it said, hey, look, all the factors are starting to show like the mechanisms that they put in place are helping.
Yep.
Inflation is slowing down.
Yep.
And so what that means is next year, if this continues to trend, the feds will bring the rates down. And then that will be another tailwind for housing.
Sure it will. It would definitely increase purchasing power, and there in turn increase buyer demand. And depending on what home inventories are sitting at that moment, it can certainly, level things out. I mean, right now for people that own homes, I would just say that, there's probably going to be a headwind out there in the market still, because what the median home is selling for or asking for in terms of a list price and what the median buyer qualifies for, there's a delta there right now still. And that delta is getting smaller, but that delta right now, like we said last month, it was, 30, 35,000. It might be now at, because of the rates dropping a little bit more, it might be at 20,000 right now is the delta there. And I'm not saying all that's going to be given back either in value, because it's greatly dependent on the price point and everything else. But the headwind is there, and it still exists. Homes are going to still feel some pressure as long as rates remain pretty high.
And the good news for sellers, is that supply is not easily replaced. You just said that we had how many homes came to market?
It was in the low 200s last month, and last year was. Oh yeah, it was. I mean, the year before we were a little over 300 that came to market, so we were down by about 30%.
Yeah, and then new construction. I mean, that's the builders are slowing down too, right?
Yeah. So obviously, home builders right now are very rate sensitive too, because they don't want to build products that can't be sold. And so everybody's kind of looking at the rate environment and trying to get a feel for, are we going to go into recession? Are we really going to see buyer demand fall off? I mean, these builders are already, making modest profits, is I think the best way to describe it. They're not killing it right now, profitability wise, but they're making a living, paying their employees, and hopefully putting something away for the future. And I think that's becoming a bit more challenging. So vacant land development, it's tough right now. I can say that a lot of subdivision dirt being moved around is probably unlikely at the moment. Just because there's a lot of lots that are already sitting here existing now. So there's going to, for builders, it's definitely this next 12 months is going to be very interesting. I have a feeling they'll have a fairly conservative approach.
I remember last year, you and I were talking, I can't remember, I think it's been close to a year, and you were telling me about how many permitted lots there are. I think you said the city of Reading, and it was a insanely high number. Like I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it was, do you remember that?
I don't remember what the exact number was. I'd have to go back and look at it.
You shocked me with it. I remember like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of vacant lots that are ready to be built on now.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of proposed subdivision maps that are available out there too, where, they've got a preliminary plan done. It's probably already been ran through at least its first phase with the Department of Real Estate, which for larger subdivisions, you have to get an approval for that. And getting through that process. And so there's something like 3,000 or 4,000 potential lots that are sitting out there right now in the close proximity to the city of Reading, in the county, of course, too, but as part of that number. But there's a lot that are sitting there that potentially could be built.
Yeah, there's no lack of land.
There's no lack of land right now. Mm-mm.
So new construction, those are good news. That's good news for sellers because, it's a competition. Yeah. So what you're basically saying is you have supply is still very, very low.
Yeah.
We're just, a lot of these numbers, they can throw you a little bit, like interest rates. We talked about it being at 6 1/8 this morning. I remember when I bought my first house, I got a great rate at 7 1/4.
Yeah.
But when you've come out of a market where people were getting in the high 2s, low 3s, which is historically, I mean, that kind of throws people off. They've got that really short-sighted memory, as well as inventory. I mean, we're not in a buyer's market yet.
No,
we're not in a seller's market either.
No, I mean, if just supply and demand tends to tell a good story, or I should say supply relative to demand, tells a pretty good story most of the time. And right now our supplies are still short. I mean, we're at 620, so we've trended down. We were in the mid 7s. For those who are wondering what the peak was this year, it was probably in the mid 7s or just below. and now we're at the 620 rate. So, and that's normal. It's a season. We're in December. It's going to be like that normally through most of January, and then the inventory begins to climb. So, sometimes we tell our sellers that, hey, if you want to enjoy a market where there's still buyers in it and a little less competition, get to the market a little sooner. Beat the spring.
Yeah.
That'd be a good, wise decision. For buyers that are out there in the market now and might feel like they can't find that ideal home yet, don't worry. Keeping good communication with your real estate agent and watch the market, because that right home could pop up at any moment. And right now, the market's kind of leaning in your favor that there'll be more inventory next year.
And a healthy market is probably a neutral market.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Ideally, I mean, if you could have your market sitting around 4.5 months or 5 months supply of homes, that's a really good market to be in. You're usually not in it very long. You usually pass through it over a period of time, and it becomes a buyer's market, or pass through it again as you go into a seller's
pendulum,
market. Yeah,
back and forth.
Yep. But ideally, it'd be great if it'd slow down a little bit in that 4 or 5 month supply, because then you have enough inventory where buyers have the feeling like, hey, or let's say I own a home and I'm thinking about buying a different home. When there's inventory, it gives me more flexibility of options. But when I'm a homeowner and I'm sitting in a home and I go look at the market, what's available for sale, and nothing's getting me excited, then why would I sell my house? And that's, I think, very understandable. And that's probably a lot of what's happening right now, is that people are sitting in their home going, well, I don't see too much out there that's getting me excited, so why should I sell my house right now? And if that's how you feel, then I would say I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Good for you. But going into next year, the inventory starts to grow, whether it be new construction or the rental market, potentially, bringing some more units to market that were rented out before. Now they decide to sell, or just people that have some pent up seller demand that want to, bring homes to market now. I think we're going to see that more at a higher volume next year.
Speaking of rental market, last time we were talking about, you have friends in property management, and they were talking about there was a dramatic shift.
Yeah.
From the 15 applicants per home to,
Yeah, and I think I don't remember if we talked about it last month, but I mean, and I got to remember which market I'm in when I'm talking like this. So in the state overall, it's really challenging. I can tell you that I've got some friends that do some pretty large development management, and they're telling me they're seeing some pretty large vacancy. That's statewide. Here locally, there's a couple of companies that are telling us now that what used to be, put a unit on the market on a Thursday, and by Monday you've got 15 applicants. Recently, they could come in on a Monday and there isn't any applicants. And that might be a development from last month, because the month before it was probably like one applicant, right? And so the inventory of rentals is beginning to grow a little bit. It's not a problem, but it's certainly a reflection of tenant demand declining some. And it's hard to know exactly what that's about. I mean, it could be part of the seasonal stuff too. It could be the fact that people are a little bit bearish about the economy and whether or not, we're going to be in a recession next year or not. And, if you have a choice between moving out of your parents' house or not, if you don't know what, if you're kind of unconfident about what might happen next, you might just stay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're sharing an apartment with 3 or 4 of your buddies and you were thinking about moving out, but hey, let's kind of wait and see, what next year brings before I do that. And so there might be a lot of different contributing factors that are adding up to a little bit of a softer rental market.
And there's kind of a big potential impact on that on the horizon, in that Bethel is building that very large school that's out going towards Shasta College.
Yeah, they've been breaking
that's
some
going
ground.
to attract a lot of renters. And I don't know if they have housing. I don't know if part of it's like, oh no, we're going to build dorms. I'm not, I'm not super. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's like a potentially huge project.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty big project. I'm not sure that's a good thing. We probably need to investigate that a little bit more and find out what their provisions were. I couldn't imagine the city of Reading okaying a project out there, knowing it would be putting some impact on the housing in the area, without having some sort of dormitory provisions in place.
You'd think.
I would think, but I would say that for everybody listening to this, that we don't know that. We need to probably go and look and see.
Clue.
I know they are right now. Currently, there's some of the students there that are renting space from Simpson University out of their dormitories.
Oh, okay.
To help handle some of that need, which was great for Simpson to do, because Simpson looked at the community and said, hey, we need to, let's do our part to help serve the market too, and take care of people. And instead of putting so much pressure on the rental market, we have some dorms that we have available at least at this time, and we can work something out. And that's been a good relationship for them. Politics aside and everything else, I think all of us collectively solving the housing issue together is really ideally what the community needs to do.
No, I think the community needs to be very at each other's throats. I think we need to segment it into about 40 groups and start basically a collective war, Josh.
Scary thought,
yeah,
right?
No, yeah. The community goes, we're all in the same ship, right?
Yeah.
So are there any projects that you're thinking of or anything because the interest rate thing is the thing that looms and we have no control over it. But what are some other factors that anything?
Well, there's a lot of desire. That's the good news for it. I mean, for anybody that has listened to this or watching it, and if you've already been in downtown, then you know what I'm about to say. And if you haven't, you need to go see it for yourself. You've seen a lot of people pledge their time, their talent, their money, their wallet, into downtown, trying to have an impact down there. And I would say if there's anything that's had the most positive impact, I think collectively in the community, it's been the downtown. And kudos to those that have been, leading the charge down there. I can't say that I'm one of them. I haven't bought anything down there and revitalized it or anything, but I've got plenty of friends that have, and I'm certainly happy for them that some of that's working out. Right. We have a lot of units that are coming online downtown. We have our downtown, there's some multifamily above some of those storefronts, and those are, I think by spring, a lot of that is going to come into shape, and you'll be able to get a really good feel for that. We have some multifamily stuff that got built out there off of Lake Boulevard, and that was a big project that I think was pretty exciting. For those that are driving down Hilltop on the north end of Hilltop before it hits 299, you'll see a big development over there. People thought it was a multifamily. It's not. It's actually a retirement community there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Retirement home. Beautiful building from what I can see so far, and that's being done. You've got a lot of home building going on some semi-large home builders that are local guys and gals that are, aggressively trying to get things going. But like I said, I think this next 12 months, they're going to be fairly, watching the rates and making sure they don't overbuild. Absorption rate is a stubborn fact. There's only so many homes that can be sold in a month based on buyer demand. And so if you oversupply one particular price segment, you're only hurting yourself, right? So, and the local builders are all too aware of that fact. D.R. Horton's still here in town. He bought some stuff from Palomar, that company did, and they're pretty aggressively building out right now off of Rancho Road. So if you haven't been out there in a while, you guys want to drive by and take a peek at it. That's a subdivision that's really coming together now. It's kind of trackish in some form because of what D.R. Horton's doing with it, but it's still certainly an attractive subdivision. It's still going to provide a lot of housing solutions. Corner of Hartnell and Shasta View, Holiday Market.
Oh yeah,
Holiday Markets. Yeah, it's a big project. So they're going to be doing an entire shopping center anchored by a Holiday Market right there on the corner. And
nice.
Axner's already broken ground out there, and it looks like it's going to be quite the project when it's done. My wife has been telling me daily that she believes there will be a Starbucks there. So I think she's pretty hopeful for that. The girls drink Dutch Bros for the record, and my wife drinks Starbucks. But there's a lot going on. I guess I know it's a long answer, but man, there's a lot going on, and I've never seen the optimism in this community. I mean, I've been here for 40 plus years. I'm 47 now, and I've never seen this level of optimism in the community from my perspective.
Well, I've only been here. Let me think about it for a second. I'm a little bit older than you, but I also wasn't born here. I would agree. There's been a couple of there's a combination of projects going on and things going on right now where people are really pouring money into infrastructure. Like you said, the downtown, that's been really nice, the way they revitalized that. And they've gone with this approach where the bottom floor is like commercial or what's the other?
Multi-use, yeah.
Yeah, it's like restaurants.
Retail.
And then they're putting apartments above.
Yep.
They've rebuilt it, just given a facelift to a lot of that stuff. And I can't remember last time there was that much money spent. You definitely have that huge Costco project.
Yep.
I heard that the Old Movies 8, and this is rumor mill, but Old Movies 8 they were gonna turn that into a like some type of workout facility because we walk by there all the time, you know. So it's nice to see some of these buildings. They're like, hey man, don't let that just go. Do something with that. That's like a really nice.
Well, that was our lower expensive. That was the movie theater before the big movie theater came into town.
Yeah.
Because it was Cascade was the dollar theater, and then the Movies 8 was like the movie theater.
You remember the movie theater in the mall, UA3?
Oh, that's right.
You remember that? Yeah, we're going way back.
Yeah. Well, I remember mostly is Cascade used to play movies there. They were $1 movie nights. So as kids, that's where we would go to watch the movies. But yeah, man, it's pretty cool to see all the work that's going into it. I think the downtown is definitely gonna, you know, I think every community up and down, you know, the state and across the country right now is trying to do something with their downtown, and which is smart. I think they should. But it's going to be an interesting thing going forward to see these units once they're done. You know, how fast can they get leased out? You know what I mean? So, you know, we're sitting on some vacancy in downtown right now too. I mean, that larger K2 development down there, it's a beautiful building. They got the apartments above it, but there's a lot of space down there. I think one tenant just recently moved into one of the spaces, but there's still a big deal of it. Yeah, which was great and exciting. But I suspect, sorry about that. I need to make sure my computer's up.
No worries.
But I think that there's going to be some more opportunity down there in the future.
I'll put you on the spot. What's the project going on just below the hospital across the street from Community Health? They all of it, they bulldozed it all. It's below the Bank of America. They're tearing. I mean, they're doing speaking of Eddie Axner, I think it's Eddie Axner's trucks that are all there, but it's something big's going in there. I didn't know if that was going to be medical or that was going to be housing. Do you know?
I actually don't know.
Because I thought it might be medical, and then they tore the other building down across the street and down. I think that's going to all be medical. It's surrounded by medical, and that's like highest use. You know what I mean?
No, that makes sense. But I don't know. I'm not sure what they're doing down there.
Yeah. So they tore down a bunch of old buildings. It looks like they consolidated several lots, and you know, the old Owens Pharmacy was that real old. All that it's all being leveled out, and something's going on. Yep. So
another change that we're seeing too is the ADUs. I think we've talked about it maybe a few months ago.
We did,
but it's. I was just talking with, I think it was David down there at Cousin Gary's, and they were talking about some of their units down there. But you know, because those manufactured homes, these aren't mobiles. I mean, these are manufactured homes, and the architectural design for these things now, pitched roofs and everything else, they're pretty darn attractive. But you know, those particular units. In an ADU kind of setting right now might be more affordable than stick built.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's, you know, I was looking at some of those numbers, but ADU is beginning to be more and more popular. I mean, the state obviously is trying to push it really hard because, again, collectively, they're trying to come up with as many solutions to the housing issue as possible. I mean, if you're not going to back off on any of your regulations, then you've got to find a way to make it a little easier to add units, you know, and so that's, you know, ADUs are a way to do that.
We talked about the city of Reading had come up with some designs where if you would use their designs, they were going to waive some of the fees and stuff. But I looked at the designs and they were pretty intricate. And we talked to a contractor about building one on the back of our lot, and he was like, just the cost, the cost of building to this. Yeah. You've lost the savings they're giving you. It'd be better to go with like a more traditional style. Yeah. And so it's 6 more and a half dozen the other. In our neighborhood, there's been a couple popped up in the last year. One of them, I remember they had a sign for rent, and the rent was just insane. Like my wife was like, are they going to get that rent? I'm like, that's what they're asking. You can ask, hey, I want $1 million, right. You know, what you get. But we noticed the sign came down and so it's rented out, but those are starting to pop up. And I can see like a more of a prefab. There's also like you see these ads through Facebook where there are these modular homes. These are not Cousin Gary's, but these are like national level ads where and the whole idea is that they're very cost effective. Yeah. They look great. I mean, when you're talking about like a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, definitely under 1,000 square foot footprint. So you got to get creative.
So it's interesting you say that because I've been looking at that right now for clients, and we're just trying to figure out. Obviously, part of our job is to forecast and try to get an idea of where the market's going. And ADUs were one of the things that we were collectively looking at here as a team. And we thought that like the ones that the city of Reading were proposing, and ladies and gentlemen, listeners watching this, don't hold me to any of these numbers, but I'm going to try to illustrate the story here. When we looked at the numbers on it, it was like $225,000 to $250,000 for the 1,000 square foot unit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The ADU, or I'm sorry, the modular numbers came in at like 215, 220, 225.
Oh, wow.
So they were different, quality products. Probably could be built a little faster than the stick built would. Maybe, I don't know for sure, but not enough of a price difference. And then Cousin Gary's on the same 1,000 square foot. Now, as long as you're okay with the architectural design and thing like that, $185.
Okay.
And so definitely less expensive in comparison to some of the other ones. And I'm not like friends with Cousin Gary's or anything. I'm just using, because they're the ones that, for guys who are listening, they're the ones that are local that provide a lot of the manufactured homes. And so that's that's interesting that the cost is still there. It's still expensive. You got to get pretty good rent if to justify spending $230,000 on a unit.
Yeah, you do. I wonder if you're doing it for rent, or like someone like us, we'd be doing it just for like our eldest kid. Just say, hey, want a place to live and want some autonomy at the same time. She's not going to go buy something. So it's like, well, maybe we build this. And
well, that's the good news, man. There was a time, and a lot of people would relate with this, where it was difficult to put on that second dwelling on there. And I mean, they had stuff like, well, you could do it if you were taking care of a relative, but if the relative was to pass on, then you have to remove it from your property. I mean, that
makes sense.
Yeah, who's going to spend the money if you have to throw it away, right?
They call that a travel trailer.
They do.
you put a house, something that and just wheel it out. Yeah, that's not a house. That's a travel trailer.
Well, and if there's anything good that came out with the state's policy on that, saying, no, you guys, they were pushing back on counties and municipalities and saying you must provide additional adequate housing. And it opened up even where the city might have even been stuck. And then, so it's not even the city's fault, but if the city's stuck with a policy they have in black and white, and they may have even wanted to change it, but maybe they wouldn't have had the votes, or, you would have had pushback from the community. Now that the state comes in and says, no, you must do this, and it gives them the flexibility to say, okay, well, now we have to provide for that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you try to do it in a way where architecturally it's still attractive. You don't want to diminish the property values in the area, but you do want to solve the housing issues. So it's just a group effort, man. It takes a lot of work.
Takes a tribe.
It does. It takes a tribe, man. We're all in it together. I want my kids, like I tell everybody all the time, my goal would be, if my kids choose to stay in Redding, California, that they can have a decent career, and they can live in a nice home, a decent, nice home, and not get priced out of the market. To me, that's our responsibility as that generation ahead of them, to try to set the playing field for that to take place.
There you go.
Yeah. So in any case, man, I think we're almost out of time, but
well, it's Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
I'll see you in a month, and hopefully we'll be talking about interest rates maybe coming down another 0.5%. And
man, wouldn't that be
we'll
great? Great for everybody. So
thank you, sir.
All right. Merry Christmas, everybody.
If you're enjoying the All Things Real Estate podcast, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.